Alright, so my unit-long lesson was completed on character traits. A preview into the lesson, the first day I did a pre-assessment. Students were asked to name 2 character traits that describe themselves as a person, and they also had to provide evidence as to why those 2 character traits describe them as a person. They were also given a passage to read, and they had to identify 3 different characters and provide 3 different character traits and reasoning as to why those character traits fit that specific character. That pretty much summed up the first day, the opening into the lesson. On the second day, we completed a smartboard lesson. Students prior to the lesson were given a guided notes handout. This handout had fill in the blanks, so students had to follow along with the lesson. Students were actually very engaged throughout this lesson. We discussed each slide. We defined character traits. We provided examples. We talked about how understanding like a character's emotions, how that can help us make a better connection with these characters when we're reading a passage. At the end of this lesson, we completed an exit ticket. This exit ticket allowed students to share what they learned throughout this lesson, what helped them understand character traits better, if they still had any questions concerning character traits, or what they still wanted to learn about character traits. This particular exercise helped me identify if there were still any weaknesses that remained with any of the students. Day 3, we did a review of what we learned the prior day. We also played a rally robin game, which was a competition between partners. Students were given the directions first. They were told that we were going to go back and forth naming positive character traits. Students were going to be given 60 seconds, and they had to keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, naming positive character traits. They were told it was a competition, it was a challenge, and that we wanted to see who could say more. This particular exercise kind of got their brain juices going. It was kind of the tone for the lesson. Students had a lot of fun with this, especially when they knew it was a competition. The second part of this day, the school is really big on objectives and why we're doing lessons. So on the board, there's an objectives chart, and it has 3 different sections, and I can, so that I can, and I know I'm successful when. And I had students talk me through how we could complete that chart for this particular unit. The last activity of this day was an interactive notebook. We got their reading notebooks out. On the left side, they put the notes from the day prior. On the right side, we did an accordion foldable, pretty much. They were going to do character traits about themselves. Since we've been going over this, we figured that they had some big words that they could describe themselves. On the outside, they were to draw themselves. On the foldable, they drew a line and half the paper. On the top half, they put character traits that described themselves. On the bottom half, they wrote incomplete sentences, proof as to why that character trait described them as a person. At the end of this lesson, we did a short cycle review, which was kind of assessment just to see how they were doing towards the middle of the assessment. On the 4th day, we read a book, Snowflake Bentley, and we completed a foldable. Students wrote 4 character traits on the flaps, and then on the insides, they put the proof from the text on the inside. Day 5 was a summative assessment. Pretty much exact same format as before. What we did was had a reading passage. Students had to read that, identify 3 characters with 3 different character traits that describe those characters, or they could pick one character and describe 3 different character traits that describe that one character. They also had to have proof and evidence as to why that character trait described them as a person. Let's see. Engagement strategies. I feel like the Smartboard lesson was wonderful. Students were engaged throughout the entire lesson. They asked questions. They were excited about stating positive and negative character traits. The school's really big on highlighting. We do reading tests each week, and they have to highlight to prove their answers. So when I told them that they can make a better connection when they know the emotions of the characters, they really enjoyed knowing that. Overall student learning, I think that they did really well. After I got the pre-assessments back, it was a little rough because my pre-assessments, I had 5 that exceeded expectations, 6 that met, 7 that approached, and about 6 that fell below. So I knew that I had some work to do. The second day really helped me after we did the Smartboard lesson and students were engaged and kind of got a feel for what a character trait is. That day they were confusing character trait with a physical trait, which describes the person as the outside, and character trait kind of describes them on the inside. A lot of them got confused with that, so we really went over that, and the exit ticket on that second day helped me to identify that there was still a weakness and that more reinforcement needed to happen. So that's why we did that review on the next day. I had several students that actually helped me rethink my plans. I wanted to go ahead and go on with the activities on the 3rd day, but since those exit tickets still showed weaknesses, and I probably had about 5 or 6 that were still weak, I knew that the rest of the class, it couldn't hurt to go ahead and just do reinforcement for the whole class. I was really pleased with the results. My post-assessment results, I had 18 to exceed, which really showed me that they took an interest into this lesson. I had 2 that fell below. Truthfully, I think the reason that they fell below is that the 2 that did, one was a Read 180 class, and Read 180 usually goes out 20 minutes, so they missed the last 20 minutes of class, so it's kind of hard to get that back with everything else that we do. So I feel that that kind of had an impact, and all the reading passages, I feel that that had an impact on the results of this test. Looking back, I feel that I probably could have, for about maybe 5 of my students, I probably could have differentiated the post-assessment for them to where it was more direct and specific questions dealing with character traits instead of just reading a passage and then providing character traits of those characters. Several things I actually got to video myself teaching. Looking back, one thing I feel that I could improve on, I say when I've taught something, I always say, okay, like asking them a question, and I feel like I can probably refrain from that. I say that a lot too. I feel that I kept the students engaged well. That's one thing that I really enjoy doing. I love keeping them engaged and asking them questions and kind of letting them run the discussion, because I think that's important. They're fourth graders, they're rising fifth graders. They're going to have to be more independent and take more self-motivation in order to learn. And I feel like this lesson kind of helped them do that. And that's about it. All right, thank you.